Thank you, Damien, for that very warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I offer you a very warm welcome to my presentation of public-private BIM. As a matter of giving you a prologue to the introduction I've arranged, I want to state that my research and my thesis is very much a social team, as opposed to a technology team, which everyone else has so finely spoke about. I suppose the aim of my thesis was to determine, other countries who were migrated to BIM, and to see if Ireland can also follow that approach and migrate to BIM successfully. The second half of my thesis was broken into two strands. The first strand was to see where BIM sits in private industry, in a multidisciplinary industry, and the second strand was to see where BIM sits and the awareness of BIM in government departments, agencies and semi-state bodies. And I suppose the overall crux of the thesis was to investigate if a BIM mandate could be used here in Ireland, could be brought in by government, and to see to find out the sentiment around that. As we all know, Irish construction is at a crossroads. The construction industry is crippled with increased fees, higher client expectations, and increased responsibilities. All professionals will need to change their current working environment and change their working procedures in order to fully accept and adopt BIM. We need to assert new relevancy in today's changing market. Redundant work procedures and practices are commonplace, and adversity and fear is very common, and it's out there in the open. As the speaker said earlier on, BIM is indeed a global thing. It's a global phenomenon, and we all need to get on board. My research has found that BIM in the Middle East is gaining momentum, but the government there need to do more. There is a lot of resistance to change from current working procedures. North America is the BIM leader of the world. They are actively promoting BIM. Even through tough economic decline, they are rolling out BIM countrywide. The Australian government is promoting BIM. It's likely that they will see a quick take-up of the technology in coming years. Privately owned organisations in Sweden are promoting BIM. The National House Builders Association and other associations are promoting its use. Norway, of course, is the Scandinavian BIM leader of the world, and they are leading the charge in this. Denmark, local authorities, government departments are all promoting its use and its inclusion. The South African government has a kind of a thinker and doer approach. I think it's the perfect place for BIM to flourish, and it will flourish in the next few years. As we all know, the 2016 is approaching the government of UK, and of course they're at the start of their BIM journey, so the greatest results will be seen post-occupancy. I suppose the common thread going through this slide is that governments in most countries are promoting BIM. They're actively engaging with stakeholders, vendors, educational institutions, and promoting its use. Some governments in other countries, those not stated there, are offering incentives for those who embrace BIM. I think Irish government could also follow this route and slipstream behind their approach and offer incentives to those who embrace BIM. This slide is predominantly relating to BIM in the private sector. My research has led me to believe that many company figureheads cite the lack of awareness, poor client demand, and poor return on investment as huge barriers to BIM implementation. Some of it is out in the open, very much so. A lot of it is swept under the carpet. As I said earlier, increased bonds and poor government support is also hindering BIM adoption. There is no 100% committal from everybody involved. Of course, the Irish government has a part to play, and I think they could be the facilitators of BIM in the future. And they certainly have a part to play. Of course, if Irish government do support BIM and they embrace its change, that will allay fears in the private industry that currently exist. And the whole process will have unity among the private industry and government departments. The construction industry urgently needs change and focus to emerge from the shadows of redundant and inefficient work practices, which we all know the norm. It's my opinion, and research has led me to believe that staunch beliefs and methods by upper echelons of the company demographic will need to be discussed in an open format in order to become unafraid of change and resistance. BIM offers the Irish construction industry a chance to become more efficient, transparent, effective, and aids with reducing costs. BIM is not a tool for intimidation. It is not a tool for fear. It is my opinion that BIM is indeed the catalyst for reform in the Irish construction industry, and the industry urgently needs it. This next slide refers to BIM in government departments. It is stated and is widely believed that the Irish government wants VFM, value for money, increased cost certainty, and increased transparency. Even though BIM awareness of some government departments is quite low. From whom many people I have spoken to, education and training is a big concern. There are many out there on the lower levels of the professional development who want to do more, who want to achieve more with BIM. But those on the upper rung of the ladder kind of stand outside the BIM scenario. They kind of feel that BIM is underdeveloped. They feel that Irish construction is not ready for BIM. And those two strands of thought need to merge together. There needs to be unity in many companies in order to fully embrace BIM. I firmly believe BIM is a driver for change in the industry. I believe awareness is a huge thing. Education is a huge thing. But there is a big disconnect of what BIM is and what BIM can do. There's confusion over what BIM is. You ask somebody what BIM is, they'll say building information modelling. Fine. Some would say building information management. I asked a professional in the field. It wasn't a top-tier company, and his response was Bord Isciwara, the Irish Fisheries Board. So there is some confusion there. I found that in my research that existing sentiment in some government departments, agencies, and some semi-state bodies believe that the country is still in recession, and an executive order from government to mandate BIM is a considerable distance away. As I said, Irish government now wants increased cost certainty, value for money, and increased transparency. BIM allows for this and more, and yet the Irish government remains fixed in the position of not fully backing BIM. Results from my research found that people in public sector departments are not fully convinced of the merits and benefits of BIM, and they don't see a place for its existence. Yet, they fully acknowledge its merits. So there's a divide there, and I think that's down to fear. This is the social side of BIM. Resistance to change and adversity across multidisciplinary professions is hindering adoption of BIM. The AEC industry needs collaboration and not intimidation. We need an open, pragmatic approach and no blame atmosphere for BIM to coexist. Sooner or later, we'll have to get on the BIM train. We can't just sit on the fence and use the Irish mentality of wait and see, which many companies are using. Government could provide a way of future-proofing the technology in the way of incentives, tax breaks, protection from litigation, and various VAT exemptions in order for businesses to embrace BIM. Fortunately, there are a small group of companies that see themselves on the cutting edge of BIM in Ireland, but more needs to be done. The industry needs positive-minded individuals who see the true potential of BIM and are not afraid to get involved with BIM and its processes. Government, as I said, could become facilitators of BIM and reward those who embrace it. BIM education plays a vital role in awareness, and it could coexist on various modules in a broad range of courses, making BIM a key learning choice for future professionals. These are the results of my main findings, or a review of my main findings. BIM will enable the industry to become more efficient, current and transparent. The Irish mentality of the wait-and-see approach is existent. Social and cultural attitudes need to change if BIM is to be fully embraced. Research revealed that there was never 100% committal, even though some would argue that they are, at the cutting edge of the technology. Some professionals are skirting around the peripheral and saying that they are doing what they can do in BIM, but in fact they're not. And that needs to change. Conclusion. As I said, some professionals want to embrace BIM and some are pondering its intention, but many cite the financial requirement and investment to adopt BIM and to upgrade technology, maintenance fees and all the rest. Company leaders view BIM as just another piece of software. That is very true, unfortunately, and that's down to ignorance and fear and misbelief in the BIM phenomenon. As I said, the split in the company demographic will need to merge together. Figureheads and employees will need to come together to form a common ground and effectively embrace change. And I suppose the analysis of the UK approach after post-2016 may ignite the flame of BIM for Irish government. My recommendations in my thesis, I suppose, was BIM workshops need to be regionalised. They need to be provincial. My research led me up and down the country, and many feel that BIM workshops in Dublin is just not viable. It needs to be out there. Familiarity of brand is essential. BIM, we all know what BIM is. We all have our own perceived idea of what BIM is. But anyone out there that is willing to engage with us, they're frightened of BIM, they're unaware of BIM, they need to understand what BIM is, and familiarity of brand is essential to that success. CPD and training courses are required, and they can be brought in by association or self-motivation. Of course, government will need ongoing support and consultation in the area of BIM. And it's my opinion that they will need a pilot project to see tangible evidence of BIM in operation to fully embrace it. And of course, BIM will require ongoing research and development. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Some stark messages for us there. Also some good recommendations. Any comments or queries from the floor for John? We'll take one or two quickly if we can.
Hello, John. Simon Fraser, Hussey Fraser Solicitors. John, I very much enjoyed your presentation. In terms of your research, did you come across at all any kind of indication that the public works contracts, as introduced in 2007, that they, because they more or less formalise the traditional relationship, that they are hampering in any way the adoption of collaboration and BIM?
Thank you. That's an excellent question, and I actually reviewed that in my thesis as well. The capital, or CWMF, is hindering its process. A lot of people and a lot of professionals feel it's too much. It's over sensory. Some cited the need for that to be integrated into BIM into another layer, so that anyone tendering for works or anything like that can go through a dedicated portal and it's all there. So yes, I think it is hindering adoption as well. So I think more can be done in that area.
Perhaps our forthcoming review will pick up on that theme, where the works contracts are being reviewed, and hopefully our
more can be done.
Collaboration can lead to some better outcomes there. Any other questions?
John, I can see why you got honours in your thesis. It was an excellent presentation. My name is Paul Mooney and I work for a supplier company. So I think one of the observations you made about BIM is that it's very much a global initiative at this stage. I suppose from a supplier's perspective, if you're a global corporation, you've got a competitive advantage anyway.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a much bigger competitive advantage when you get to BIM. And from an Irish perspective, a lot of the observations you made were ideal, but maybe one of the observations should be that Irish suppliers should probably get some government support to become BIM compliant, or to join the BIM store or whatever, you know.
I totally agree with you there. There needs to be a worldwide catalogue of suppliers. I think unless you're a conglomerate and you have the market, it's fine. But for us as we depend on open trade and the supplies and the supply chain, I think BIM could do more for that as well. I think that there could be an international database of suppliers that we could all feed into, and then feed into BIM off that as well. So I think there is a need for future development of it, and I think we could definitely incorporate supply into BIM at a future stage.
One more question.
Hi John, Nicholas Polly from Third Dimension. It's quite interesting to see the leaders in the BIM arena globally, and during your thesis, did you form an opinion as to how far behind Ireland is in the BIM arena, and how long it will take to get up to where the other countries, even up to where the UK is and the Scandinavian countries?
Yeah, Ireland, unfortunately, the figures I have, they're not really worth talking about at the minute, because unless outside the people that is in this room here, BIM is very much at the lower end of the scale. Albeit it's talked about. It's certainly talked about amongst a lot of professions in many companies, but it's only talked about in secret, as if it's BIM has a secret organisation. BIM needs to be out there. It needs to be mainstream. With regard to coming up to speed with our European colleagues and Scandinavian colleagues, I think it'll be 2020 before we'd see any true benefits of BIM on a large scale here in Ireland.